How's it going, everyone? This is the George here, and today we are continuing the 2023 Halloween series of reviews with Scream 2. That's right, we're going to be reviewing the second film in the Scream franchise. Last year, for the 2022 Halloween series of reviews, I reviewed the first Scream, and earlier this year, when it came out, I reviewed Scream 6. So I'll put the links down below to those reviews if you want to check those out. But Scream 2 came out in 1997, a year after the original Scream came out, and is once again directed by Wes Craven, and once again stars Nev Campbell, David Arquette, Courtney Cox, and Jamie Kennedy in this film where it takes place a couple years after the events of the first Scream movie. Sidney Prescott and Randy are now in college, and there's a new movie out called Stab based on the events of the first film. And during one of the screenings of this movie, which I will say that was a very obnoxious audience in that theater. I don't know if I would have been able to stay in that theater with all those screaming, running people in ghost face costumes. Basically, we see two people get killed during a screening of this movie, and this is a different way of setting up the new Ghostface. Where in the first film we had the infamous, call Casey Becker who and kill her and her boyfriend Steve, and that was a perfect setup of the movie, and that's a setup that we've seen most of these Scream movies do. So this is a pretty different opening compared to what we usually get in these Scream movies, which I will say I appreciate, but it's also my least favorite because I don't know, I just found that audience to be so annoying. And I get it, you're in a theater full of people that are not paying attention, they're acting like lunatics, everyone's wearing ghost face costumes, you don't know who is who. But it just always got on my nerves, that opening. But ways this movie, as I said, came out a year after the first Scream movie. So this movie was kind of rushed compared to most movies. There was a lot of rewrites going on, and there were scenes being written on the day the movie was being filmed. And the thing is, when it comes to slasher sequels, not just horror sequels, I mean, we've seen some horror sequels turn out pretty well, but when it comes to the slasher genre, most sequels aren't usually that good or well received. Scream 2 was one of those rare slasher sequels where the movie got pretty good reviews. The Rotten Tomatoes score is either around or a little bit higher than the original Scream movie. And yeah, this movie isn't as good as Scream 1. Scream 1 is phenomenal. But this is one of those few rare slasher sequels that is a pretty good movie. Now, it's not a perfect movie by any means, but it's a movie that continues the themes of the previous movie, the meta commentary. In this case, there's discussions on can sequels be better than the first film, or are they always going to be inferior? Um, how the horror sequel turns out compared to the original, more bloody. The body count's going to be higher. All that. We find that out from Randy, the most relatable character in these movies. But also, we see how the characters are processing what happened from the previous film. Gail Weathers, once again, played brilliantly by Courtney Cox. She wrote a book about what happened in Woodsboro, and that became the Stab movie. And she's trying to eat up that fame still. Her and Dewey's relationship is pretty sour because of how she insulted Dewey in her book. And Dewey's once again played great by David Arquette. And we see like how the events of the previous film have taken a toll on Dewey as well. Nev Campbell, once again, is awesome as Sidney Prescott. This is probably my favorite horror protagonist, my favorite slasher protagonist in these movies. And we see how she's dealing with it. She's getting these prank calls, and she's having these confrontations with Cotton Weary, once again played by Lee Schreider. And we see that Cotton Weary, even though his name's been cleared, there's still some people who don't trust him. They're still wary of him, and he wants to have like a televised interview with Sidney to clear the air. We see Randy trying to move on from what's happened. He's a bit jealous of Sidney's new boyfriend in this movie. But we see like how he's processing all this. He has a really great scene where he is talking to the killer on the phone, and then ultimately leads to his death, which I will say I get why they did that. But it's a creative decision that I strongly disagree with because, as I said, Randy is awesome. He's the most relatable character in these movies. But I just love the conversations that these characters have in regards to movies, and it's stuff that I think has actually aged well. Like we still have these conversations as to is the original always going to be better, or can sequels be better? There's also the conversation that one of the people that turns out to be the killer, which by the way, I always forget to do this. There's going to be spoilers in this review. So if you haven't seen Scream 2, step away now because I'm getting into more spoilers. But if you've seen it or don't mind spoilers and stick around, one of the suspects brings up about how movies can promote violence, or can movies promote violence, and we still have this discussion. I remember we had this discussion 4 years ago when Joker came out. We have this discussion when it comes to video game violence with video games. So a lot of these topics are still relevant today, that were pretty relevant 26 years ago when this movie came out. And I will say the Ghostface killings, they definitely step it up. In fact, at one point I thought Dewey was gonna die because the way he was getting attacked by Ghostface was pretty brutal, and then it turns out he survived. To me, this is probably the most unrealistic Ghostface survival, when you survive an attack from Ghostface, compared to most of the others that we've seen. But I mean, it's always good that Dewey survived, because I love Dewey, and it already sucked that they killed off Randy in this movie. I love the Cotton Weary stuff because, again, it adds more tension, and it adds another suspect, because just because Cotton Weary was proven innocent from when he with Sidney Prescott's mom, because it turned out Billy Loomis killed Sidney Prescott's mom, not Cotton. He can still be a suspect because he might want revenge on Sidney. Jail could have hardened him. He was almost on death row in the previous film. You got this new boyfriend. I will say there's this cringe scene with Sidney's boyfriend where he's in the cafeteria on top of a table singing about how much he loves Sidney. I'm not saying it's a bad scene. It's just there's some scenes in this movie that I would have personally cut out that I think were not needed in this movie. And that was just one of the scenes that I just did not enjoy personally. I get I was out for humor, but it just didn't work for me. This movie also has great scenes of suspense. For example, when Randy's talking to Ghostface on the phone and we have no idea where this person is or who's on the phone. Another one is when Sidney and her friend are trying to get out of a car, climbing over Ghostface's body, not knowing when he can move or could possibly stab him. So you got great scenes of suspense in this movie. Now, the thing that I'm not a huge fan of when it comes to this movie is the suspect reveal, well, the culprit reveal, and how it was handled. So the two culprits in this movie are this college student named Mickey, the one that was saying movies can promote violence, played by Timothy Olyphant. Sorry if I mispronounced that last name. And the second one, who we don't really see a lot of, other than her gushing over Gail Weathers earlier in the film, is this woman who turns out to be Billy Loomis's mom. And if we remember from the previous film, Billy's mom walked out on him and Billy's father after Sidney's mom had an affair with Billy's dad. And the motivations, I don't have a problem with the motivations of this movie. I mean, with how Timothy Olyphant's facial expressions when he's talking to characters early in the film are, yeah, he would be perfect to be a suspect. He had a crazed look in his eye, not as crazy as Stu and Billy. Like Skeet Ulrich and Matthew Lillard did such a great job of capturing that craziness before it was real that they were the killers, like that crazy look in their eye. And you saw with Mickey as well. But I felt like Mickey, he wasn't in the movie a whole lot. The thing I noticed with not just the first Scream, but the other Scream movies, I might have to go back and rewatch Scream 3 because I can't really remember with Scream 3. But I definitely know in Scream 4, 5, and 6, we spent a pretty good enough time with the Ghostface killers before they were revealed to be Ghostface. There was a build up to them being revealed. At a certain point, you don't suspect that they are the culprit. Here, we don't really get that, not just with Mickey, but also Billy Loomis's mom. We just really don't. We see them very briefly in this film, but we don't really see them a whole lot in this movie. And the motivations work. I mean, Mickey's motivation of using these to promote what he believes, and Billy's mom wanting revenge after Billy was killed by Sidney Prescott in the previous film. But it's just compared to the other movies, I think the other movies have just done a better job of building up these suspects. As I said before, you could have cut some stuff out of this movie, and but you could have added maybe more scenes with these characters, maybe hinting saying that they could possibly be a suspect, and maybe like they may not be a suspect, but they're just there. I just felt like you could have just done more with that buildup, especially because the thing I love about all these Scream movies in general, not just Scream 2, but all the other Scream movies, is that even though the killer is always going to be someone dressed as Ghostface, it's always somebody different dressed as Ghostface. The thing is, when it comes to other movies, for example, the Halloween franchise, with the exception of Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, it's always Michael Myers. And again, Michael Myers is the icon of the Halloween franchise. But it kind of gets stale when we think Michael Myers dies at the end of a movie, only for him to come back. The worst case of this was when Michael Myers died in Halloween H2O, and then it's revealed that, oh, somebody else in a Michael Myers costume that died in Halloween Resurrection. So I love that there's, even though like it's always going to be someone in a Ghostface costume, it's somebody different with different set of motivations. It's a different crazy person, different ways of killing, different scenarios, different motivations. It's basically if you made Scooby-Doo into an R-rated series and just take Scooby-Doo out of it, because there's a mystery aspect to it. Who is the culprit? Is it Cotton Weary? Could it possibly be one of our heroes? At one point, Gale Weathers is a suspect in this movie. Dewey and Randy say, well, maybe we can be suspects. Who the heck knows? And speaking of Scooby-Doo, Sarah Michelle Gellar, who played Daphne in the live-action Scooby-Doo movie, she's also in this movie. Very briefly, she's one of the victims of Ghostface. But yeah, she's another member of the Scooby-Doo cast that's in this movie. And we recall Matthew Lillard, who played Stu in the first Scream. He later played Shaggy in the live-action Scooby-Doo movies. But I will say, despite how the killers were handled, despite some things I wish could have been cut to make room for more buildup with the suspects, with the actual killers, Scream 2 is a pretty good sequel. It's pretty enjoyable for the most part. I didn't like that lunchroom scene, but I still enjoy the movie. I love the mystery aspect to it. I love the scenes of suspense in this movie. They did step up the suspense very well. And even when I rewatch these movies many times, there's always a feeling of suspense with these movies. That car scene never gets old. The performances are excellent as always. And again, I felt like Timothy Olyphant kind of felt wasted because when he was on screen, he did a very good job of portraying this crazy film student. But there just wasn't enough screen time for him. And there could have been more. And I think they might have learned that lesson because I noticed the killers in the previous movies, in the next movies, not previous movies, sorry, they get more screen time before it's revealed they're the killer. So I think they learned from that mistake. But overall, Scream 2 is one of the best slasher sequels we've ever gotten. Is it my favorite Scream sequel? No, I personally enjoy Scream 5 more than this film. And I think Scream 6. And that's where I'm going to get into my grade with Scream 2 because I'm always torn between a B plus and a B. I will say because I did enjoy Scream 6 a little bit more, I will rank Scream 6 a bit higher. I need to probably go back and rewatch Scream 6. But overall, with Scream 2, I'm going to give this film a B. It's a pretty good movie. They step up the killings. They do a very good job with the character development of these characters. And yeah, even though it stinks that Randy got killed off, at least he got killed off at the Hatwave point where his death does raise the stakes and show that this is completely different from what they went through in Woodsboro. But yeah, if you haven't seen Scream 2 yet, go watch it. It's a very good sequel. One of the best slasher sequels we've gotten. I would probably say with the exception of Scream 3, which will be the next Scream movie I will review. Don't know when I'll review it. I like all these Scream movies, and I think they're all pretty good sequels for the most part. But even Scream 3, I think, is better than the vast majority of slasher sequels we've gotten from other franchises. But what are your thoughts on Scream 2? Did you love it? Did you hate it? And what's your favorite Scream sequel? For me, it's Scream 2002 or Scream 5. Let me know in the comments down below, and I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe already. If you haven't already, please share us with someone that loves to Scream movies, and I hope to see you guys real soon. Take care, everyone.